Okay, this is part one of the trilogy assignment. And the first movie that I watched was The Equalizer 3, and it was directed by Antoine Fuqua, yeah. And the other movies that he's directed is The Equalizer, all the Equalizer movies, Training Day, starring Denzel Washington, of course, and Ethan Hawke, and Bullet Train, starring Brad Pitt, and also Emancipation, starring Will Smith. Brief summary on The Equalizer 3. If you follow the Equalizer movies, you know the main character, the main protagonist, Robert McCall. But if you don't, the main protagonist is Robert McCall, played by Denzel Washington. And in this movie, he's settling in Italy, healing from a injury, right? And he finds himself stuck in another conflict between the local townspeople, and a crime organization. And what story did the movie tell? Like all the other Equalizer movies, this story tells like Robert trying to settle down and live a quiet life away from his past, but he once again has to become the equalizer, right? He has to become that person that he's trying to step away from because people need his help. I went to the Logan Theater to see this movie, and I took the bus to the Logan Theater. The audience was filled with older people, older than me, and a few women also, older men and a few women. Um, what what was the vibe of the theater? Uh, I don't know. It was quiet. It was different. It was not like a normal AMC theater. The layout was different. Um, and the room that I saw the movie in, it had like two uh, division. Like it was on two different sides. Like there was chairs on two different sides, and I thought that was different. Normally in the AMC theater, they're like rows, but not in this theater. Um, how did what was it like watching this movie in the theater? It was different, but once I got like immersed in the movie and the story that they were telling, I really wasn't paying attention to it. And yeah, what did you notice or what stood out to you? How did the movie make me feel? The movie, I'm a big fan of the Equalizer trilogy, all of them, all of the movies, even this one. Okay, no, I'll take that back. I'm a fan of the previous Equalizer movies. I thought they were really, really good, right? I love watching Denzel Washington on screen, but and they always gave me this feeling where they were like they were really telling a story, right? But it's kind of starting to get dragged out now, right? In this movie, it was kind of I understood what they were telling, but I didn't find it that interesting, right? I didn't like it that much. Um, it became kind of kind of boring. Like in the previous movies, it just told a different story, right? It kind of told a different story, and there was meaning to it, right? Like you could see the plot, you could see like the themes in the movies, but in this movie, I don't know. It seemed like it was more fan service, right? They only made the third movie to make the fans feel good, right? To entertain the fans, which is not a bad thing, but it's just I didn't see a point in it, right? Would I recommend the movie? No, this isn't okay. I wouldn't recommend this movie. Just like I wouldn't say like, hey, you should go see Equalizer 3. Like, no, that's not no. Um, Out of the trilogy, I still wouldn't recommend this movie. I would recommend one or two because I like both of them. This movie just doesn't. It just didn't give me that. Like the previous movies gave me a feeling like it was nice, right? It was I don't know, it just gave you a good feeling. But this movie, it kind of just it gave you kind of a disturbing feeling, right? And I'll tell you why. The main song in this movie is Monster, and this is for question 13. Um, when we when we were watching Fight the Power, not watching Fight the Power, but when we were watching the Spike Lee movie, and the main song was Fight the Power, it was mentioned that, if you want to make the movie better, you give it a song that really highlights the movie. Don't put in like a random song. And for this movie, they actually did a good job with that. The main song was Monster, right, by Jacob Banks, who I'm a fan of, right. And in the movie, you can tell that Robert is starting to become different. Like in the past movies, he didn't take enjoyment in killing, but in this movie, it's kind of disturbing watching him, especially in the last scene. It was kind of disturbing watching him kill the person that he did, right? it it makes him look like a monster, right? And if I could pick one prop from the movie, what would I pick? I would pick probably, I guess the Black Book, the Black Notebook. Uh, Robert McCall had like a black notebook that he gave to a CIA officer, um, and that black notebook connected that officer to her parents. And I thought that was dope. That was a nice callback to the previous movies. And I like my fair share of notebooks. So I would pick the Black Notebook. Okay. For the second movie that I watched Five Nights at Freddy's, directed by Emma Tammy, who also directed The Wind, Blood Moon, and Fair Chase. I've never heard of those movies before. Brief summary of Five Nights at Freddy's. It tells the story of this security guard named Mike who is trying to work and provide for his little sister. Mike is played by Josh Hutcherson. He's trying to provide for his little sister, and he picks up a security job at this place called Freddy's, which is the equivalent for Chuck E. Cheese, and he's still suffering from the disappearance of his brother, when they were kids. So yeah. What kind of story did the movie tell? It tells a story of trying to get over past trauma. Um, basically, just getting over past trauma and how that trauma affects your life, and how past trauma affects your life in the present, right? And I took the Brown Line to the Davis Theater because that's where I saw this movie. And the theater was kind of empty. A few people were there, but it was kind of empty. It was quiet, and I know the reason why. Everyone knew that the movie wasn't really gonna be great, which goes into the question number 9. How did the movie make you feel? I was bored. I was bored while I was watching this movie. I tried to be into it because I wasn't necessarily a fan of Friday Nights at Freddy's growing up, but I kind of understood it, and everyone else around me was a fan. I played the game, and that was kind of fun. But yeah, when I heard that they were making a movie about it, I was like, okay, let's see where they go. And it didn't work. Like, it just didn't match, right? What did I notice or what stood out to me? I noticed that the movie was it was filmed nicely, right? There was nice shots of the creepy place, right, at night, the Freddy's. It was there was nice shots of Josh standing like in frame, but he's staring at Freddy's, and it's supposed to give you that eerie feeling, but it doesn't. Like most of the horror stuff that they tried to do in this movie, like jump scares and stuff like that, it didn't work because we knew nothing was gonna happen. Right? It was one of those movies. It's definitely not like how the game is played, which it would have been more entertaining if it was. Did I like the movie? No, it made me feel bored. Even towards the end, this movie I would not recommend it whatsoever. I wouldn't recommend the movie. I feel like it's a pretty big disappointment, um, and it doesn't showcase how terrifying possessed animatronics actually can be. They kind of tried to do something different, which did not work whatsoever. Um, and I can say though, we talked in film studies, we talked about how everyone has a story and character development. And I will say in this movie, the character development was pretty nice for Josh and his sister, not for anyone else, right? For Josh, he really struggled with him and his sister's relationship was really like struggling. Like they were struggling to trust each other and stuff. But as the movie progressed, you know, he actually became aware and he was a big brother and he loved his sister, right? And he let go of that past trauma, which was really nice. It was nice to see. Um, and I can appreciate that they did try to do something different with his past trauma, right? And really trying to flesh out the story because in the game, you're the security guard, so you don't have a story, but they gave the security guard a story, right? And I thought that was nice. If I could have one prop from the movie, it would probably be the badge from that Josh got from working security, right? He wears a badge, and I thought that was it was a nice badge. I can't really tell you why. I mean, another item I would pick would probably be the animatronic, just because it would be nice to have around Halloween time. But that's basically it. For the last movie that I watched for the trilogy assignment, uh, virtually I watched Mr. Church, and it was directed by Bruce Beresford, who also directed Her Alibi, Silent Fall, Bride of the Wind, and The Contract. Um, what was the movie about? Mr. Church is about a really, I was about to say a famous chef, but he's not famous. It's about a really talented chef played by Eddie Murphy, who is hired. He's hired to take care of a woman and her child, played by Britt Robertson, until the mom passes away because she's terminally ill. She has cancer, right? And it's a movie about a beautiful friendship, right? It tells us, it's based on a book and it's based on a true story. It tells the story of a beautiful friendship between all three of them, right? The mom, the child, and Mr. Church. Charlotte is the child, the mom is Marie, and Mr. Church, right? And I was in my dorm when I watched this movie. I've seen this movie before, but I wanted to watch it again through the eyes of a film study student. And I watched it at my desk. I watched it on my laptop at my desk on the website Soap Today, which is actually a pretty good website to watch movies and shows on. It was There was no, it didn't look bootleg, and it didn't have any like problems besides it kept pausing and it kept like buffering, but that was it. I didn't watch the movie with anyone, and I didn't. While the movie was buffering, yes, I was on my phone scrolling just to pass the time while the movie stopped buffering. But while the story was being told, while the movie was on, I was immersed in it. Right? It's actually a really really good movie, and it's a comfort movie. Yeah, nothing. This is a serious movie, but it's also a comfort. There's some funny moments in it. Like it tells the story of like a normal life, right? But yeah, it's a comfort movie. It gives you that comfortable feeling that you could watch with literally anybody you want, right? What did I notice, or what stood out to me in the movie? What stood out to me in the movie was I'm a big fan of Eddie Murphy. I like his movies. I watched his movies growing up, but this movie is probably the first movie I've seen with Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy playing like a serious role, which is really good. Um, and you don't see that often, right? You don't see that. And I guess in the story aspect of what stood out to me is that it's very, you have to pay attention to certain details to really understand them. Like Mr. Church is a very quiet man, right? He lives a very private life. Everything is private about him. What after he leaves the house, everything is private, and he said that in the movie. His life is his life. So when we go later on into the movie, and we find out certain details, and it's kind of confusing. The stuff that he says, you really have to pay attention to it, especially when yeah, that stood out to me. Like you have to pay attention to certain things that he says and the way he says them, right? And the look on his face when he says them. What did I like the movie? I love the movie, and I always love this movie. It's a very, very good movie. It tells a really good story. The acting is really good. The performance by Eddie Murphy and Britt Robertson is really, really good. Well, I give everybody their flowers. Everyone did a great job in this movie. Would you recommend this movie? Yes, I would. If you want to watch a comfort movie that showcases many of Mr. Church's talents, like cooking and playing the piano and dancing, etc., watch this movie because it's just really, really good. What can I take away from this film and connect it to what you learned in film studies? I would take away. So once again, I would say the character development, and that's probably my go-to. That's nothing. That's the number one thing I look for in movies is character development, whether the character regresses or progresses or just stays the same, right? But in this movie, Mr. Church, his character development is really really good. Even Charlotte, even Charlotte, Britt Robertson's character, she progresses in this movie. She stops being like a snob-ish, not a snob, a mean person, right? A mean person to becoming a better person, right? And Mr. Church kind of lets go a little bit of his privacy when it comes to Charlotte because after all, she's family, right? When that's the number one thing he cares about is his privacy, but he opens up as the movie progresses, right? So that's what I would take away. That's what I would take from the film and connect it to film studies. And if I could have one prop from the movie, it would be either Mr. Church's piano or, yeah, I would actually say his piano. Because I think that if this movie was more popular, I would say iconic, but it's just I like the instrument. I like the piano, and the way that they were playing the piano in this movie, making it effortless. Even how Brett Robertson was playing the piano, it was it was nice. Okay, so this is part two of the trilogy assignment, and I'll be talking about my experience in film studies, right? So first question is, what did you like about the class or not like? I liked that this class was, and at first I didn't like it. I didn't like how extroverted the class was at first, but I grew to like it over time because it was a tight community that Nikki built, and there was no judgment, and we were making art at the end of the day, right? We were making a film. We were studying other films and putting those aspects of those films into our own films, and what we made at the end of the day was very, very beautiful, right? What stuck out to me about the class was, yeah, like I said, how tight knit of a community it really was, because that's not usually how it is in a college class, right? It's very rare. Normally in a college class, we have, you know, you see strangers every day and they stay strangers, but I can probably name you everybody's name in that class, and that just doesn't happen in a normal class, right? You just go there, you sit, you observe the teacher, you observe the lecture, and then you leave, right? But in film studies, it's different. You go there, you talk, you participate, and then you leave, right? Uh, what is something you learned that surprised you? Um, I would say the movie Boys Don't. I remember it was Boys Don't Cry. I didn't know that movie was based on like a real story. That's something that surprised me. I remember sitting and we were having our discussion about it, and Nikki said that the movie was based on a true story, and that actually, you know, surprised me a lot. Which I kind of watch movies based on a true story all the time, but it was at the ending of the movie kind of, you know, it was shocking. So to hear that it was based on a true story was very, very sad, right? And something else that surprised me was in the documentary that we had to watch, that we were assigned to watch. You know, I didn't know that women were were harassed openly like that in the film industry. I didn't know it was like that, and it goes like unacknowledged, right? So, so that's what that's what that's another thing that surprised me the most about the class. What would you have like to know more about? Um, I I can't say. I feel like we learned a lot from the camera angles that we learned, and I'm pretty sure there's more camera angles that we probably could have touched on more, maybe. But we got the basics, and that was fine. I don't know, because I feel like we learned a lot in the class, right? From the character development and the camera angles and how to really tell a story. I feel like we learned. I don't think there's anything. If there is something left to learn, then of course, but I can't say like what I would have liked to know more about. And if I could make any changes to the class, what would they be? Um, I wouldn't make any changes. I wouldn't make any changes to the class. I feel like everyone who takes the class likes it. They might not like it in the beginning, take it from me, but you like it towards the middle and end. You get to watch entertaining movies and make your own movie, right? With a group or by yourself, right? But I think that's really special. Um, and you could recommend it to a friend. But that's it. That's part two of the trilogy assignment.